October 21st, somewhere over the Black Sea, a Russian Su-27 fighter jet screams through the air at over 500 knots, closing in on what its pilot assumes is just another vulnerable American reconnaissance plane. Within seconds, the distance shrinks to a mere 10 feet, close enough to see the rivets on the fuselage, close enough to feel the jet wash, close enough to spark an international incident. The Russian pilot executes an aggressive barrel roll, his aircraft coming within 25 feet of the American plane's body, creating a powerful vortex designed to destabilize his target. But here's what he didn't know. He had just challenged the wrong aircraft at the wrong time in the wrong place. What happened next wasn't a dogfight. There were no missiles fired, no bullets exchanged, no dramatic aerial combat. Instead, something far more terrifying unfolded. A demonstration of technological dominance so complete, so surgical, that the Russian pilot would soon find himself blind, deaf, and utterly alone in hostile skies, desperately searching for an excuse to explain his retreat. This is the story of how a reconnaissance aircraft defeated one of the world's most agile fighter jets without firing a single shot. This is the story of modern warfare, where data defeats daring and discipline trumps aggression every single time. The strategic chessboard, why the Black Sea matters. Before we dive into the confrontation itself, we need to understand the battlefield. The Black Sea isn't just a body of water on a map. It's a strategic pressure point where trillions of dollars in global trade intersect with Russia's geopolitical ambitions. International shipping lanes crisscross these waters like arteries carrying the lifeblood of commerce. Control this space and you control a significant piece of the global economic puzzle. On that fateful day, a US Navy P-8A Poseidon patrol aircraft was conducting what should have been a routine mission at 10,000 feet. This wasn't some outdated spy plane. The P-8A is a technological marvel, equipped with advanced sensors that continuously record detailed images of all activity on the sea and in the air. The crew's mission was straightforward: monitor international territory, ensure freedom of navigation, and protect the global commons that keep world trade flowing. They weren't there to provoke, they were there to protect. But Russia had other plans. The threat emerges, 500 knots of pure aggression. The first indication that something was wrong came from the Poseidon sensor system. A target was approaching at an astonishing speed. A Sukhoi Su-27 flanker, the deadly symbol of Russian air power, had launched urgently from a coastal airbase in Crimea. This wasn't a patrol aircraft matching course and speed for identification. This was pure aggression. The Russian fighter accelerated hard, its flight path a non-negotiable straight line heading directly for the American aircraft. Speed exceeding 500 nautical miles per hour. Communication attempts, 0. Warning signals on emergency frequencies, none. This was a clear and deliberate violation of international aviation rules, and everyone in the P-8A's cockpit knew it. Then came the knife-edge maneuver. The Su-27 cut across the P-8A's flight path at only 10 feet. To put that in perspective, that's roughly the length of a small car. At those speeds, at that altitude, with that little separation, a single mistake would mean catastrophe. But the Russian pilot wasn't finished. He executed an aggressive barrel roll directly in front of the American aircraft, bringing his fuselage within 25 feet and creating a powerful vortex, the kind that could easily flip a larger, less agile reconnaissance plane into an uncontrolled spin. Inside the P-8A's command center, data flooded the tactical displays. The red icon representing the Su-27 flashed menacingly. Threat vector, 600 knots approach speed. Distance, closing rapidly from 500 meters. Estimated time to next intercept, 30 seconds. But here's the remarkable part. Through it all, the American pilot's heart rate remained steady. No panic, no hasty movements, just thousands of hours of training kicking in, designed specifically for moments like this, to cool down provocations from undisciplined opponents. The crucial question echoed through the aircraft's secure internal communication system. Is this the mistake of an inexperienced, hot-headed pilot, or is this a calculated probe from the Kremlin, a deliberate test of our resolve and rules of engagement? The answer would determine everything that followed. Russia's strategy became clear almost immediately. They were using basic electronic concealment tactics, hoping to hide the Su-27's actual flight path. Their bet was simple: surprise the American crew, force them to panic, make them deviate from their predetermined route, and thereby concede control of the airspace. It was their first and most serious mistake. They believed they were dealing with a single isolated aircraft operating alone. They couldn't have been more wrong. The invisible network, America's secret weapon. High above the Black Sea, invisible to Russian radar operators, an E-3 Sentry AWACS aircraft had been patrolling the entire time, connected seamlessly to the P-8A through secure networks. The E-3 Sentry's airborne warning and control system is equipped with radar capable of tracking low-flying targets at 250 miles and high-altitude threats even farther away. In an instant, data from both platforms merged over the secure network, integrating all sensors into a unified intelligence picture, a panoramic view of the entire battlefield. The Su-27's exact location and projected flight path were predicted when it was still 50 nautical miles away. Russia's element of surprise vanished before it even existed. While the Russian pilot thought he was executing a clever ambush, the Americans were watching him from the moment he took off. They knew his speed, his altitude, his heading, and his intentions before he was even close enough to see the P-8A with his own eyes. With complete situational awareness, the American response was calculated and deliberate. The P-8A's high-resolution cameras recorded the entire incident, turning Russia's provocative action from a fleeting threat into permanent, irrefutable evidence for the international community. Russia was playing a clumsy game of hide-and-seek with outdated radar concepts. The United States was operating in an impenetrable information network where every move of the adversary was predicted, analyzed, and countered before it was even completed. The trap springs, multiple threats, but one fatal flaw. The aerial confrontation escalated. The initial Su-27 wasn't acting alone. On the AWACS screen, 2 additional Russian fighters appeared. This time, the more advanced Su-30 models with a maximum speed of Mach 2.35. They had launched from Sevastopol Naval Port, carrying various weapons. Their intention was crystal clear: use numbers and speed to create a trap surrounding the P-8A and overwhelming it. But this tactic exposed a fatal weakness in Russian doctrine. Their aircraft rely on outdated radar technology and cannot link up or share information with each other. Each Russian pilot was fighting alone, 3 separate aircraft, rather than a unified combat formation. No shared targeting data, no coordinated attack plans, no network defense, just 3 pilots flying independently, each with their own limited view of the battlefield. The American response was immediate and devastating. From the aircraft carrier USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, strategically positioned 200 nautical miles away, 2 Fa-18E Super Hornets launched. They streaked across the sky at Mach 1.2, their advanced EASA radars scanning the entire 360-degree environment simultaneously. The technological gap was enormous. The Super Hornets carried AIM-120D missiles with a lethal range exceeding 100 nautical miles, almost double the 50 nautical mile range of Russia's best air-to-air missiles. More importantly, U.S. pilots were connected via the same data network as the P-8A and AWACS. This meant Super Hornet pilots could see the Su-27 through the P-8A's sensors without ever turning on their own radar, never revealing their position. This wasn't a confrontation between individual pilots anymore. It was superior technology and tactics, turning Russia's provocative efforts into a strategic dead end.
The underwater dimension, nowhere to hide. While the aerial chess match unfolded above, another threat lurked below. The P-8A's sonar locked onto a Russian Kilo-class attack submarine. These submarines have a fatal weakness: their diesel-electric propulsion system. To charge the massive batteries used for silent underwater movement, they must run diesel engines. Those engines are extremely noisy, generating vibrations and acoustic signals that modern sonar can detect from miles away. Even worse, To run those diesel engines, the submarine needs air, forcing it to surface in shallow water and use its snorkel, an action that not only reveals its position, but also emits maximum noise, making it an unmissable target. Neutralizing this underwater threat was swift and surgical. An MH-60R Seahawk helicopter, deployed from a nearby Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, arrived on scene. It descended to low altitude and began deploying a network of sonobuoys, small floating sonar devices about 5 inches in diameter and 3 feet long. These devices formed an inescapable acoustic net around the submarine's position. The Russian submarine commander, who believed himself to be an anonymous observer, was now the one being observed, tracked, and targeted. The Seahawk crew locked onto his position. If ordered, they could deploy torpedoes to permanently neutralize the threat. Not a single shot was fired, but the message was undeniable. The United States controlled the underwater domain as thoroughly as it controlled the skies. The hidden threat was exposed and rendered meaningless. Electronic warfare, the battle for information dominance. The peak of Russia's provocative actions came in the electronic spectrum. The lead Su-27 pilot activated his fire control radar, temporarily locking onto the P-8A. This action is the aerial equivalent of pointing a loaded gun at someone, a signal that a missile launch may be imminent. Simultaneously, the flanker began emitting basic jamming signals, a crude attempt to blind the American aircraft's sensors with electronic noise. It was their last card, a desperate attempt to psychologically force the opponent to retreat. It backfired spectacularly. As soon as the Russian radar signal hit the P-8A, its new generation ALQ-249 jamming system reacted. The system didn't just block the incoming jamming signal, it took control of it, amplified it, and counterattacked the source in a brutal electronic countermeasure. The system created a precisely designed wall of noise that overwhelmed the Russian systems completely. On his radar screen, the single P-8A target vanished instantly, replaced by a flood of hundreds of false targets. The Russian pilot's entire situational awareness, his window onto the battlefield, became useless. Strong electronic interference. The pilot's voice crackled over thick static on the radio. Lost target lock. Screen full of fake targets. Request instructions. But his communication system was also jammed, completely cutting him off from his teammates. He was blind, deaf, and alone in the sky. Unable to distinguish between real and fake targets, the Russian pilot had no choice but to abort the attack and consider retreat. The final card, a ghost in the sky. Just as the Su-27 pilot tried to regroup for another attack, the final card was revealed. A new target suddenly appeared on his radar screen in a perfect attack position, only 50 nautical miles away. But this was no ordinary fighter jet. Its radar signature was unlike anything he had been trained to deal with. It was a B-2 Spirit stealth bomber. The B-2 had been flown silently from its base in England and had been hovering over the Black Sea the entire time, completely invisible. Its appearance wasn't to attack, it was to send a message, a cold and terrifying declaration that the United States controlled the entire airspace from the outset and could destroy any target at any time. From a safe distance of 80 nautical miles, an FA-18E Super Hornet pilot received orders. He launched an AIM-120D, but this missile had no warhead. It was a message, not a weapon of destruction. The missile streaked across the sky, its engine burning a brilliant trail of fire. It flew past the nose of the lead Su-27 at a distance of only 200 feet, close enough for the Russian pilot to see it clearly. Its sonic boom reverberated in his cockpit, and the powerful whine of its flight was deliberately broadcast over the emergency radio frequency. There was no verbal warning, no threat over the radio. Only the silent, imposing presence of the stealth aircraft, combined with the display of overwhelming power that was precise and non-lethal. The message could not have been clearer. Withdraw immediately, or the next one will be real. The retreat, when aggression meets reality. For the Russian pilot, the situation had changed completely. He wasn't just facing an F/A-18 with superior range. He now realized a B-2 stealth bomber he'd been completely unaware of had been watching him the entire time. Continuing the attack was no longer a provocation, it was suicide, and it risked igniting a larger conflict for which he was completely unprepared. He abruptly turned his Su-27 away, abandoning any intention of attacking. Over the radio, he reported back to base in an urgent but controlled tone, claiming his radar and fire control systems had malfunctioned after the electronic jamming. It was the perfect excuse, a face-saving cover for the truth that he had been completely overwhelmed in every way, technologically, tactically, and willingly. But the American mission, however, wasn't yet over. The F/A-18 Super Hornets didn't immediately return to the aircraft carrier. Instead, they established an air control perimeter around the P-8A, calmly and methodically flying several more patrol laps. The eyes of pilots and officers on the AWACS remained glued to radar screens, tracking the signals of the retreating Russian aircraft until they were just small dots, then disappeared completely from scan range. The aftermath. Lessons in modern warfare. After the incident, the success of the American strategy was undeniable. It was a perfect combination of information superiority and the unwavering professionalism of the crews. Russia relied on brute force and aggression, a strategy that collapsed when faced with a superior networked adversary. The aircraft withdrew, and the Russian government later issued a statement claiming the confrontation was a routine training exercise, a predictable attempt to save face. But the US Department of Defense quickly released high-resolution video and radar data from the P-8A, turning Russia's private military failure into a public lesson for the entire world to witness. Each link in Russia's multi-domain attack chain was systematically identified and broken, with the final fiery warning shot becoming an undeniable exclamation point. For Russia, it was a costly and humiliating lesson about the absolute limits of blind aggression in the face of technological and doctrinal superiority. The image of that warning shot, a streak of fire cutting across the bow, will be a lasting reminder of that lesson. But for the US Navy, for the men and women guarding the global commons, it was ultimately just another Tuesday, a quiet, professional testament to a simple and enduring truth. The seas and the rules governing them will always belong to those who master technology, discipline, and the will to use both with surgical precision. When that Su-27 pilot closed to within 10 feet of the P-8A, he thought he was making a show of force. What he didn't realize was that he was already surrounded, already outmatched, and already beaten. The Americans didn't need to fire a shot because they had already won the only battle that mattered, the battle for information dominance. In the end, the Russian pilot flew home with a convenient excuse about technical malfunctions. But somewhere in Moscow, military planners had to confront an uncomfortable truth. In the modern battle space, you can't intimidate an opponent who sees everything, knows everything, and controls everything before you even make your move. The Black Sea incident stands as a stark reminder that the future of warfare isn't just about who has the fastest jets or the biggest missiles. It's about who has the best network, the clearest picture, and the coldest nerves under pressure. And on October 21st, there was no question who that was.